Have you ever felt love go away? Was it in an instant, much like how it appeared? Or did it linger and hesitate as it fled? A shared emotion that felt so certain, so palpable and boundless, but like all things, had an end. Those benign feelings that saturated your being spoil and turn into something unrecognizable. An ambulant husk of what once was, dried out by resentment and hurt. A doomed romance. In today's video, we continue the procession of failed relationships with the endearing and raw edition of Blue Valentine. The story of Dean and Cindy, who seem to have found their happily ever after, but got stuck in a mundane, self-inflicted nightmare. The past and the present of their relationship is put in full display, juxtaposed so we can see where in between their love dissolved. Spoilers will follow.
I'm asking you, please. Let's get out of here. We gotta get out of here. Maybe we have to get out of this house.
Blue Valentine starts in the present. Cindy and Dean are a married couple with a young 6-year-old child, and it's evident from their interactions that they're a few misplaced words away from a complete blowout. As the movie progresses, the story is intercut with vignettes from the past that inform us on how they met and fell in love.
You can tap dance?
Can you?
No. Here. I'll play a song and you dance.
What these two timelines create is a contrast that is revealed thematically and visually. The past is filmed on actual celluloid, using handheld and dynamic camera movements with a warmer, more inviting color grade, while the present is digitally recorded with colder blue hues in the shadows and restrained by a static camera that parallels the couple's increasingly sedentary, unspontaneous life. Another contrast can be found with the characters themselves. When we meet Dean, he's a high school dropout looking for a job as a mover. He's a caring, warm, aimless soul with a lust for life and seems unbothered by just going with the flow of things. Unlike Cindy, who is grounded, quiet, colder, and determined to finish university and become a doctor. Nevertheless, their paths intersect, and with the passage of time, the characters turn into a contrast of their former selves. Not just due to how their life turned out, Dean having to settle down, and Cindy cutting her education short and becoming a nurse, but because their past and present interactions with each other are night and day.
Where do you want to go?
I want to go away to school.
What are you going to study?
Medicine.
When they used to ask questions, it was to open a dialogue, to try and get to know the other person, every bit of information being new and cherished, leading to more insight. But in the present, their questions are not for insight, but of judgment, a way to deepen miscommunications, asking for explanations to an action they didn't like.
How come you're just telling me now?
Because I'm telling you now.
How come you didn't tell me when we were there?
I don't know, because I was flustered, and I'm telling you now.
Conversations no longer hold expressions of love, but are minefields where you have to carefully maneuver around a problematic situation. Dean's spontaneity is no longer an attractive quality, but a sign of immaturity, and Cindy's groundedness is now interpreted as indifference.
We rarely sit down and have an adult conversation because every time we do, you take what I say and you turn it around into something that I didn't mean.
Their love is now eclipsed by their mutual resentment. This contrast is meant to mirror the contradictions we can find in a relationship. As the director put it, I've always seen Blue Valentine as a duet between a man and a woman, their past and their present, their youth and their young adulthood, love and hate, joy and despair. In a relationship, there are certain situations where you'll feel like you're experiencing a physical and emotional contradiction. You might go to sleep with someone you disagree with, or start a fight with someone you're doing the groceries with. There will be disappointment next to admiration, or anger alongside love.
Nobody else talks in my family. When they talk, they just yell.
We'll never get married.
Cindy and Dean's relationship shows us that with time, love can change. Dean starts at a place of not wanting to be tied down. He is passionate and experiences emotions to the fullest. Once he meets Cindy, he profoundly falls in love with her.
What's your name?
Go away.
Go away.
Go away.
That's a weird name.
So much so that he decides to become the father of her child. That's where his love takes him, to have a wife, a child, a home. The things he never wanted, but then realizes makes him content, because it's what he never had growing up, ever since his mother left him. On the other side, Cindy comes from a dysfunctional home where her parents didn't divorce but made her upbringing very difficult. So she's naturally wary of relationships. She has a fear of picking the wrong person. She is worried about the impermanence of love and why it goes away.
I don't ever want to be like my parents. I know that they must have loved each other at one time, right? Did they just get it all out of the way before they had me?
Dean's passion is a welcome change because it's a love she feels her parents didn't have and will surely help her avoid the future she fears. But as time passes on, it's those same strong emotions that become an issue. She realizes she wants more out of life and needs Dean to want more.
Wasn't there something else you want to do?
Then what? Then be your husband? To be Frankie's dad? What do you want me to do?
But Dean is cozy with being complacent and rejects her need for change, which reinforces her fear. It's what happens in many relationships. Somewhere along the way, when they weren't paying attention, these two individuals started to grow apart. And when you grow apart, those needs you used to be able to fulfill go unattended. Two people that used to be in sync are now detached. This is perfectly illustrated with the use of lenses, the past being shot by a wide angle, giving the characters ample space to move around. As they get to know each other, they start filling each other's frame, while the present is filmed with telephoto lenses, separating the characters in their own tight frames, no longer sharing the same space as before, together physically, but emotionally and mentally divided. I think when you start having experiences in life, you make choices. Every choice has a consequence. And I feel like when people get older, their path narrows and the road narrows for them, and there's less opportunity. And so I want to visually represent that with Blue Valentine, with the past being a place of opportunity, visual opportunity for the actors that could go anywhere, and the present to be a place with less opportunity, less space, less room to move, less room to breathe. It's ironic that the place Dean and Cindy chose to reinvigorate their relationship is called the Future Room, a windowless, claustrophobic, dimly lit, uninviting place, representative of what Cindy fears the relationship is becoming, where Dean's proposition to have a baby is too much for Cindy to bear. In the past, the prospect of a child is what initiated their union, but in the present, it's what makes Cindy realize it's over.
I'm done with this. I'm done being angry like this. I'm done having you drunk like this. I am done. Don't close that door.
I'm closing the door.
Blue Valentine was brewing inside director Derek Cianfrance for a good 12 years as he wrote 60 scripts before getting to a final draft. But even then, he only used the script as a stepping stone and encouraged the actors to set aside what was written and improvise their scenes. Cindy and Dean's first date are the real reactions of the actors discovering each other's talents. Dean going over the edge of the bridge to make Cindy tell him she's pregnant was an unplanned escalation. The actors actually lived together in the house for a month, limited to a painter's and nurse's budget. All these efforts were taken to try and create real moments, like a documentary of two people falling in and out of love. This grew from the director's rejection of unrealistic portrayals of romance on the screen and strived to show characters who aren't perfect, who don't speak in perfect sentences, and who don't have perfect story arcs. Their lives don't wrap up so easily. I think the audience yearns for that kind of honesty because the fantasy that Hollywood is enamored with actually betrays people in the long run. We see authenticity be respected with the use of camera angles. They're behind a window or placed further back in a scene, catching up to the characters, or even at their backs while they're fighting in the car. This shares the perspective the director experienced while witnessing his parents arguing. The film Blue Valentine always to me has that child perspective to it. Always watching our parents not from a perfect angle, but from over their shoulder. From behind them, we're seeing and observing this thing happen between two people. The director wanted to show the complexity of a relationship that he experienced during his parents' divorce and present in his own relationships. A story about relatable, unpolished people with no villains, just characters that are perhaps emotionally unequipped to find solutions to their mounting problems.
I can't stop. You can't stop. I can't stop. I don't know what else to do.
I can't stop.
A harsh but important reminder that love is an ideal we strive to express and experience without flaws, but our expressions of love can only be as well put together as we are. That's why Cindy and Dean's love is of contradictions, change, and imperfections, because as humans, we're flawed. So romance can be as doomed as what we bring to it, good and bad. So what's the point of this doomed romance? To not expect relationships to be perfect when our expression of love realistically isn't either. and that it's okay to allow yourself the expectation that relationships can end. We all are programmed by these fantasy movies of this never and forever. If Dean and Cindy don't make it, and if they never get back together, then they had it. It's okay. To have it for a day is better than never finding it at all. It's like the fireworks at the end of the movie. Some don't take much time to dissolve, but they still burned bright and lit up the sky. A love story is still a love story, even when two people don't end up together. Thank you for watching our video. That was the 5th installment of our Doom romance series. Let us know what other Doom couple you would like us to discuss in the next one. My personal choice would be Marriage Story, but you can still change our minds down in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and hit the notification bell. That would really help our channel to keep growing. The musical composition was made by Eduardo Gonzalez. If you like his work, then please check out his information down in the description. Until next time.